Welcome to our live wire on the Evangelism template. It's good to have you here. Many years ago, when I was living in Manchester, a piece of paper came through our door, and it was about a young boy called Robert McDermott. There were two sides to this flyer, and it talked about Robert and the trouble he'd been in and the issues the police were having, and it had a map, and it explained on the map where he was put under house arrest. He was probably around about 14, 15 years old. And it was very depressing to read this document of this young boy who was placed under house arrest, couldn't go outside of the area without certain types of supervision. But what intrigued me was one section, and in this section it said, what you can do to help. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What can we do to help? This leaflet was sent to 14,000 people in our community. What can we do to help? Well, basically it said this: if you see Robert outside of this area, call us, we'll keep your identity secret, and we'll lock him up. And not long later on the news, that's exactly what happened. Somebody had called up, they arrested him, and they put him in jail, from what I can understand. I think you can sum up this entire document in 4 or maybe even 3 words. We give up. We don't know what to do. Now, I think if the church gives up, there's no hope for Robert. If the church stops reaching out to the Roberts of this world with the gospel, what likelihood is there of transformation? So we're going to look at the evangelism template. How do we reach anyone, anywhere? Wouldn't it be great if Jesus gave us a template for evangelism, if he showed us actually how to do it? Well, I believe he did, but it's in a passage of scripture called Luke chapter 10. After this, the Lord appointed 70 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. He told them, "Go, I am sending you out like lambs among wolves. Do not take a purse or bag or sandals, and do not greet anyone on the road. When you enter a house, first say peace to this house. If someone who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest on them. If not, it will return to you. Stay there, eating and drinking whatever they give you, for the worker deserves his wages. Do not move around from house to house. When you enter a town and are welcomed, eat what is offered to you. Heal the sick who are there, and tell them the kingdom of God has come near you. But when you enter a town and are not welcomed, go into its streets and say, even the dust of your town we wipe from our feet, as a warning to you." So this passage is absolutely packed with information about how to reach anyone, anywhere. It's really, really helpful. And what we're going to do in this live wire is essentially unpack this passage. This live wire is connected to the book Shalom, How to Reach Anyone, Anywhere, and hopefully you'll find it really helpful. But essentially, I'm going to do a kind of overview, and we're going to look at the evangelism methodology first, because I do think we have a problem. There's a very famous statement that kind of goes around churches, and it goes like this: our methods must change, but our message must remain the same. So I want to suggest that that statement is highly specious. In other words, it sounds good. When you first hear it, you think, absolutely. But when you think about it, you realize actually it's quite flawed. So for instance, our methods have never changed without our message changing first. You know, when I was younger, the message was turn or burn. It was all about proclamation. It was say the prayer. And so everything we did worked along those lines. We had lots of Sunday evening services just based on the gospel. It was all about preaching. Nowadays, it's more like preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. So now mission and evangelism has become just handing out bottles of water on the street, and we don't even mention Jesus sometimes. So what does evangelism look like in Jesus' mind? How did he imagine it? Well, I think when we miss his context, we miss his point. And so there are 2 things we need to look at. Evangelism is the message, evangelism, the methodology. I think we have problems with both, and I want to go through both of them. First of all, let's ask the question, why don't we preach what Jesus preached. To understand what Jesus preached, I think we have to understand the word shalom. We see it in this passage, Luke 10, peace. But it's more than simply peace. It's more than simply getting along nicely or not having any worries or concerns and feeling at peace. Peace is about completion. Some of the Jewish authors say this: we call it peace, but it means far more than peace of mind or a ceasefire between enemies. In the Bible, shalom means universal flourishing. Or you could say it means putting things back. It means completion, to complete things. When we become Christians and we're following Jesus, he's redeeming us. He's redeeming our minds. All of us become aligned to his will. And in that, absolutely, we have peace. So what would that look like? I like to use diagrams to explain these things. So let me kind of look at this. So the Bible talks about the archon. Ephesians 2 verse 2 says, the ruler of the kingdom of the air. And I want you to imagine this black circle representing the air. I know this is a very simplistic diagram, but if you look at that center, that grey as the earth, and then the black as the air, the prince of the air, he has dominion, he kind of has influence upon us, and we see it in the world. We see it in all those things we hate that we see on TV. The ruler of the air, the archon, the prince of this world is behind that. The Bible says some interesting things. The Bible says the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. What does that look like? Well, imagine someone gives their life to Jesus, and part of the enemy's territory is taken away, and the light of God comes into the world. And then we lead other people to Jesus, and more of the enemy's territory is taken away. What we have to understand is that heaven is infinite. The kingdom of heaven is infinite, but the enemy's territory is finite. When someone gives their lives to the Lord, part of his territory is taken away. And then, of course, we find other people coming to Jesus as we do evangelism, and more of them begin to disciple other people, and eventually more and more of the enemy's territory is taken away. So eventually we have shalom. Eventually we have peace. Eventually the things are the way they should be. John 12 verse 3 says, now is the time to judgment on this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out. Or in other words, kingdom come. So what is our message? Our message needs to be the full message, which is this: Jesus didn't simply come to rescue you. Jesus didn't simply come to rescue you. Now, we have this idea on Pais of a Christian-centric gospel, and it's all about us. But we present a kingdom-centric gospel, and the kingdom-centric gospel says Jesus came to recruit you. So Jesus did not simply come to rescue us. Jesus came to recruit us to bring heaven to earth. And I would implore you, I would encourage you, when you're sharing the gospel with others, don't simply say to them, Jesus came to rescue you. Because the natural outcome of that is, well, he came to rescue me, so I'll just go to church now, be a nice person, wait to go to heaven. No, we need to explain to people, Jesus came to recruit you, to have an impact, to bring heaven to earth, so that things on earth happen the way they do in heaven. And for me, that changes the way I explain the gospel. So I wrote out the gospel the way I explain it, and I'll read it to you. I'm not saying you have to memorize this word for word, but I would say this is a more fuller gospel. Have you ever asked the question, why do I exist? The answer is actually quite simple. You exist because no one exactly like you ever existed before. And God wanted someone exactly like you. You are loved because you were created to be loved. Of course, not everything about you is lovable, is it? We are all flawed and imperfect. In fact, we sometimes need saving from ourselves. Yet when Jesus came to die on the cross, he did not come to simply rescue you, he came to recruit you. He came to invite you to spread his love. God says that the kind of religion that he desires is the kind that looks after orphans and widows in their distress and rejects the evil in the world that pollutes us. If you are prepared to do that, to ask for forgiveness, turn from your sin and follow Jesus, then he will fill you with his love in order that you can bring that love to others. Do you have a sense of that already? A bigger reason to live than just you? If so, can I ask you to return to the person he created you to be and live to advance his kingdom? So I think we have a problem with the message, but I think we also have a problem with the method. So let's ask this question. Why don't we do what Jesus did? Why don't we do what Jesus did? We spend so much of our times inviting people. And here's my question. Why do we spend so much time, energy, and resources inviting people when Jesus spent so much of his getting himself invited? Just think about how often Jesus got himself invited. One of the obvious times is with Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is up a tree. What does Jesus say to him? Come down. I'm going to have tea with you. I'm going to come to your home. You're going to invite me in, and I'm going to share the faith with you. There are so many benefits to getting yourself invited. Let me just give you just maybe 5 that I could think of pretty much off the top of my head. First of all, more, not less. You're going to reach far more people by getting ourselves invited into the world than we are from inviting people into our church buildings. The question is, do we know how to get ourselves invited? I mean, do you know how to get yourself invited to talk about Jesus? Or do you feel like you've got to force your way in, which makes you nervous, you probably don't do it? Do we as the church know how to get ourselves invited into the community? Or do we just instead go into politics to force our religion on people? How do we get ourselves invited? If we do get ourselves invited, we're going to reach far more people than we could possibly get in churches. I know of a church in southern Texas that had a vision to reach the whole of their city. But if they just thought about it for a moment, even though they were a mega church, I think they worked out they would need something like 120 services per Sunday to get the whole of their city into their church. And it was a very big building. Secondly, it's helpful, not hurtful. When you're invited, when people ask you in, you're helping them rather than hurting them. So we work in schools on Pais, and what we have is we have references from schools, and they'll say to us, please come in. Now, I've done all sorts of evangelism over the years. I've never done prison evangelism or hot air balloon evangelism, because I'm not sure the second one actually exists, but every other type I've done. And sometimes you feel like when you're on your streets or when you're knocking on people's doors, you're being a little bit of a nuisance. But when you get yourself invited, when schools say come in, not only do we get a chance to share our message, but also we're doing them a service as well. Thirdly, it's acceptable, not awkward. What I've noticed is this: if people ask you a question, what you say next is always socially acceptable compared to when you present it yourself, pretty much. So if I go into business, which I've often done, and I suddenly stand up and say, hey, I need you to believe this about Jesus or this about the Bible, it's going to be awkward. But if they say to me, hey, what do you believe about the Bible? And I explain it, that's far more acceptable. So we have to learn the skill of how to provoke questions. And that's a different Live Wire series where we look at the evangelism skill set. But for now, we're asking the question, why don't we get ourselves invited when that's what Jesus did? Fourthly, it means we're credible rather than crazy. For instance, again, in schools, I would go into schools, and one of the first things I would do was a disclaimer. So I would say to the young people in the classroom, hey, what I'm going to be sharing today, I've been invited by the school, I've been invited by Mr. Riley or Mrs. Overton, I've been invited by Len, but I'm going to be sharing my own personal beliefs. Now, I've said it, which helps the school, but the reality is I've got the credibility of the staff. I've got the credibility of being invited in by the headmaster, and that helps a lot. And finally, it's efficient, not expensive. Many years ago, I was in another part of the States, and I was invited to visit an incredible youth ministry. This was the youth ministry building. This is not the main church building, it's the youth ministry building. It's incredible. And when you go inside, you see things like this. That's the snack shop. I would happily live in that snack shop. It's an incredible place. It's like a cinema snack shop. It's incredible, fantastic, incredible. And then next to it is this indoor glass basketball court. Absolutely incredible. Upstairs, there was something like 100 iPods when they'd just come out and some like Xbox type games. And then there was a sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, they could fit at the most 1,200 people. I remember talking to Pete and Bryony, or actually Pete Baker, I should say, in England. And I said, there's this great place and it's cost millions. And on a Wednesday night, they can get about 1,200 kids in. And he said to me, 1,200 kids? That's Monday morning. That's Monday morning in schools. And somebody else has invited us. So somebody else has paid for the building. Somebody else has paid for the gas and the electric. And somebody else has paid for the staff. One of the questions I like to ask is, how aligned are we with Jesus in what we say and what we do? Are we aligned with him, or have we created our own version of Christianity? How aligned with him are we? On Pais, like I say, we have this concept of being Christian-centric or kingdom-centric. Christian-centric is to pursue our vision God's way, so God gives us what we want. But to align ourselves with him is to pursue his kingdom God's way, so we give him what he wants. How would you know the difference? Well, as churches, maybe one of the ways we'll know if we're Christian-centric or kingdom-centric is what fruit are we looking for? Are we excited about the fact that we're the biggest church in the city? For me, that should be a little bit depressing. Well, we're the biggest church in our city, but we're not reaching our city yet. That's depressing. How sick would I have to be excited that Pais, that's in 20 nations, if somebody said to me, Pais is the biggest schools work in the world, which I'm sure it's not, I'd have to be sick in my mind to be excited about that if I'm thinking, we're only reaching 20 nations. That would say I'm excited about our ministry, but I'm not excited about his mission. And I think that's a really key, important part. When I grew up in church, my pastor, and I'll finish with this story, my pastor was given the opportunity, because I worked as a youth pastor, and there was another church down the road that had no youth. And someone said to him, well, could you send Paul to help us to start a youth ministry for a couple of weeks? And he said, yeah, I'll pay Paul. And I went for 2 weeks. And we started, some young people were interested in Jesus. And then they realized, nobody's going to be able to disciple them. So my pastor said, I'll give you Paul for a year. And Paul will come, and for a year he'll help run your youth ministry until you've got someone that can come in. During that time, one of our youth pastors became ill, and at no point did Harry bring me back. Why? Because Harry was more in love with the kingdom than he was in love with his church. Are we more in love with his mission than we are with our ministry? And if so, we will change our message and we will change our method. In the next 2 episodes, we're going to look at unpacking the template that Jesus gave us in Luke 10. We're going to find out how to reach everyone anywhere. We're going to find out how to get ourselves invited. But for now, I'd like you to do the collaboration. So let's download the documents, discuss the questions, and disciple others in what we've learned.
Hi, we hope that you enjoyed this episode of Livewire. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, I'd like to recommend mypais.com, where you can find more episodes on this subject.